Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
This is Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast with your host, Bruce Hutchin, episode number 270. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. This is your host, Bruce Hutchin, and we're heading to Slinger, Wisconsin today, and we're going to visit with an old friend, AJ Gall. AJ is the Legendary Whitetails Community Page Manager. That means he takes all the pictures that people send in and he talks about what's going on in the whitetail world from the stand or from a blind. And having said that, he's going to talk about the 2016 Rut Forecast based on a couple of indicators, actually 4. Stay tuned. You're going to love the show and you're going to tell your friends and neighbors all about it. Hey, listeners, don't forget to text 33444 Food Plot for your free Food Plot ebook. Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous. Folks, we're heading to Wisconsin, and I'm going to be actually in Wisconsin at the end of the month here hunting whitetails. But we're going to stop by Legendary Whitetails, and we're going to meet up with a friend, AJ Gall, who is the Legendary Whitetails Community Page Manager. AJ, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Bruce. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, and it's really exciting. Hey, folks, we are going to talk about the rut, but I wanted this, AJ, just to tell you what Legendary Whitetails Community Page Manager means or does. Can you share that with the listeners?
Sure. Yeah, so basically as a community page manager, it's basically I'm in charge of all the hunting content that we put out for our consumers to use. So I do a lot of writing, some filming, stuff like that, everything deer hunting related. And it's just a way for us to keep connected to our customer all year round and sharing the passion that we also live.
Well, the rut's here. I mean, I know there's tremendous floods. I just saw something up in Florida. There's some evacuations because of the floods we're having. Wisconsin was 2 weeks ago, the hellacious floods.
Yeah, there's been a lot of rain going around, especially on the western part of the state.
And, and so we know it's going to change some things. One, the corn, if it's low-lying corn, they're going to be able to pick it. Same with beans, any crops that are in anywhere near a river. Fortunately, our farm is right above the Buffalo River, the Baraboo River. But there is some low-lying crops that the deer use at different times of year, and that's going to be a problem. So before we get in the rut, just address that for the people who are being impacted by these floods.
Yeah, I mean, for anybody, severely impacted, prayers go out to you guys. But in terms, going back to the deer movement, standing crops can have a huge impact on what you'll see throughout the season. I know a couple of years ago, I think western Wisconsin specifically, had some wet fields and then followed up by some early snowfall, and those crops stood through the entire winter. So there's plenty of food, but there's also plenty of cover. And when that happens, it gets pretty tough to hunt them, especially for gun hunters. A lot of times they'll lay low in those cornfields, and they're just very tough to hunt or push out, and they can bed and feed at the same spot without moving. So floods can certainly have an impact on movements, can change pinch points, especially. So they're just creatures of natural habits, so they're going to take the easiest path of least resistance. But you can also capitalize on the flood waters if you have the right property and the right ground that does suit that. Say lakes get above borders and some of the crossings get washed out, or river crossings. It's probably going to narrow down the spots that they can cross and funnel through. So
Yeah, thanks for that. And folks, we're all getting excited to talk about, we're talking about the rut. I did some research, and the first article about the rut I saw was printed in April of 2016. They were starting to forecast the rut, if you will, or let us know when, where, and how. And like we talked in the warm up, AJ, if you're not in your tree stand, if you're not hunting, what difference does it make?
Exactly. Yeah. Everybody wishes they could have limited or unlimited vacation. So, I mean, I usually have my 1 week to spend that I'm in the woods all day, every day, but try to hit all the weekends pretty hard surrounding that on the days that I don't have off, and any afternoons that I can shove in a few extra hours and kind of plan my work weeks like that. I'll work long certain days and try to plan for the days with the best wind or the best stand.
And, hundreds, if not thousands, it's in the thousands in Wisconsin do exactly the same thing. And because it is a big deal, and we got some gorgeous, gorgeous deer, in Wisconsin, and Buffalo County is well known, but I think in every DNR district for whitetails, you get a chance of shooting a Pope and Young for sure, and maybe that that Boone and Crockett class deer. Is that a correct statement, AJ, for Wisconsin?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you lived here, you would probably think otherwise, judging by how the hunters talk about the state, but especially, the southern half, the northern forested counties are kind of on a rebound, but if you know how to hunt up there, there's certainly big animals up there, and there's not as many deer running around, but especially during the rut, you can find some really good mature Northwoods bucks.
And for people who don't realize, the wolves are problematic in northern Wisconsin, period. And yes, we have an open season, we have a trapping season or hunting season for wolves, and every year we hit the quota. And even Juneau County, where I hunt, we see wolves, period.
Yep.
There's not a lot of big packs, but they're there. And down by Slinger, where you guys are at Legendary Whitetails, do you see wolves down there or not?
No. I mean, there's been some reportings on trail cameras, but majority of what we're looking at is coyotes down here. We're in pretty good farmland country, so a lot of coyotes. In fact, I just did a story on a guy that shot a really big buck last week down here, and he let it lay for 2 hours, and by the time he went back to retrieve it, the whole stomach had been eaten out by coyotes already. So, I mean, not too many wolves down here. They're down into the center of the state, Marquette County, and then pretty much got the whole northern portion centered with heavier pockets, kind of in the north central area. But yeah, predators, they're a problem. We've been lucky to have a couple easy winters the past 2 years now. So, and it's kind of when the no shooting of does has started. So hopefully that herd up north is rebounding. But I know for a while there, be lucky to see a deer on our sits, at least during gun season.
And, so the DNR is trying to do the best, but definitely if you're hunting north of 24 between Green Bay and Minneapolis, you've got company in the woods. And I know my friends that live north of that highway, everybody carries a 9 or whatever, because it's scary, especially when a pack of wolves lights up when you're walking out of the woods. It's, it's scary.
It is an eerie feeling knowing you're not the only one out there, but it's also pretty cool to hear them light up. But I prefer them further away than closer.
Yeah, and I don't know the regs. Can you carry a pistol in the woods when you're archery hunting?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I do believe. I'm almost 100% positive you can.
Okay, and I just wanted to lay that out, folks, because everything you do, okay, we're going to go by the book, and enough, I'll just leave it at that. So let's get into Legendary Whitetails by AJ Gall. rut predictions for every theory. So let's jump into that article that you wrote just because you're trying to help everybody out.
Sure thing. Yeah, where you want to start? You want to kind of work your way through it and go?
Yeah, just do the
theory by theory.
Number one, the moon. Yeah, the moon.
All
I
right.
think was the first one, wasn't it?
Yeah, we'll hit the hot topic right off the bat. All right. The rut predictions based on the moon. So in the past, we've always had Charlie Alsheimer on our show. And we've always done an interview with him and put out his kind of world renowned rut predictions based on the moon. And his would always kind of be based off the, I believe it's the rutting moon, which is after the autumn equinox. And so kind of based on when that falls, it's give or take 3 days is when things usually start heating up after that second full moon. And so this year compared to last year, it's like a full 2 weeks later, which is supposed to mean a kind of a slower trickle rut, prolonged, not as intense. Last year we believe it was on October 27th when that rutting moon fell, and that was supposed to be, if it falls right around that 1st of November when the doe estrogen levels and the buck testosterone levels and then the full moon all kind of coordinate and sync up. That's what they call a synchronized rut, and it's supposed to be hot and heavy. But as many of us know, last year we got smacked with some really warm temperatures.
And I hunted 3 different counties in Wisconsin. I saw one mature buck, Pope and Young, 2.5, 3.5 years old. It wasn't, a big buck at all,
Sure.
but I just call him, a teenager, if you will. And I should correct myself. Mature bucks is 4.5 years or older, but I saw one that, somebody might have said, well, that's a nice buck, you should shoot him. And that's the only shooter buck, if you will, I saw the whole year, and I hunted 20 some days.
Yeah, it was slow. I had a couple good hunts right at the end of October last year. We had some pretty cold and windy days right before it really heated up. And then I saw some really, really nice bucks. And then after that, it just turned off. I mean, we planned our week of vacation and it was 70 degrees every day in Wisconsin, and that's not good. No. Very, very minimal deer movement, especially mature buck. But yeah, I was happened to be in the right stand last year and ended up shooting my best buck on November 3rd, which was 75 degrees here at last light. So I can't complain. The 2 biggest bucks I've shot, actually, one in Iowa in 2012 was on a 65 degree day too. And that was November, I think it was the 15th. So both my biggest bucks have come in 65 degree or warmer temperatures, which wouldn't be expected.
No, it wouldn't. But, you've garnered a lot of information. And why is the stages of the rut important, and why do these triggers, I'm going to call them triggers, the moon's a trigger. Some people believe in it, other people don't. Why is it important to pay attention to it in your, thinking?
I think, the biggest thing is if we could all hunt every day of the year, we would, or, we'd try to if we had enough spots to. The biggest thing is most of us serious deer hunters try to plan a couple days of vacation around the rut. So any type of knowledge that they can get that's going to try to, hedge things in their favor, which a lot of people do believe that the moon is one of those factors, then they're going to want to look at these dates. And so compared to last year, it's a little bit later, and you're looking at November 14th through November 21st or so as the anticipated best days of the rut.
And that
2016.
The end of it falls right on
right on opening
beginning of gun season.
You bet, yeah. So, typically gun season, there's 1 or 2 running around. It seems like still finding those does, but for the most part, it's nothing like the first 2 weeks of November. It seems like, but again, it comes down to hunting pressure and all that kind of stuff.
Now. Okay, I know the moon affects the tides,
Now, how does the moon affect the trigger, being a trigger? What does it do to the deer's behavior, and how does it do it?
Well, for specifics, I think that'd be a question for Alzheimer and LaRoche, the guys behind the study. But they're linking it to the amount of light, and so moonlight's going to affect the full moon specifically is going to affect the amount of daylight by just a little bit. And so I don't know the deep specifics of it, but I listen to what they say every year and kind of go by that. But I'm not a real firm believer in it. So that's about all I can elaborate on for that.
No, and you can go read Alzheimer's and LaRoche's thing. Deer and Deer Hunting have their article. AJ's used some of their work to do it. So, check that out. And, some people swear by it. When I'm fishing, different moon phases and, the times of day that the fish are going to get hot or evenings or whatever. And I fish to that.
Yeah, I believe fishing has a big.
It
definitely has
almost
a
almost
factor
to the time of day almost.
Yeah,
and I got cocky one day. We're fishing Lake Michigan, and I said, "Okay, at 9:55, we're going to get a strike." Everybody said, "You're full." Blah blah blah. I said, "Okay, beer time." And who's in? And there were 4 or 5 of us in the boat, and everybody chipped in $5, and it went off, and they're looking at me. They said, "Rig." It was funny, but that was fishing. Let's get back to rut predictions based on biology. Now let's talk about that a little bit.
There's also I'll just touch on this for a quick second. In terms of the moon, there's kind of 2 theories that float around. One is Alzheimer's and LaRoche's, which is based off the rutting moon, that second moon after the autumn equinox. And then there's the other one that they kind of, it's more based on the moon position, which is that moon guide that you see floating around. And that's kind of the underfoot overhead times. And I'm not real familiar with that. But it's one thing I want to do as a hunter this year is start tracking and logging a lot more information, and just so I can elaborate and use my past experiences and kind of reflect on what I saw and what the conditions were like on a certain day. And
I'll throw this in, but a couple of years of experience, weather does have a huge impact, as we saw last year. And we knew, the crew I hunt with, we knew some big bucks were going to show up this year because they didn't get shot. They had another year. They weren't stressed. I mean, all the factors ended up, we got plenty of food on the farm, so that's not a problem. We've got cover, and we got plenty of water. So, we've always had deer, but we just didn't have, like Garrett took this year, a 180 deer. But we knew that was coming. And my friends in Buffalo County, they said, "Bruce, we're getting some big deer on the cameras," and that's so you got to pay attention, folks. That's all I'm trying to say. Rut predictions based on biology, step 2 or trigger 2. Let's talk about it.
All right, so now we're getting down to science and actual articles, proven facts. This is kind of where I'm more of will put my stake down in, and so I know QDMA has several articles on this, but pretty much across the Midwest and Northeast and stuff like that, the peak date pretty much falls within a given 4-day period every year. And for the Midwest, it's right around that November 15th, and it doesn't hardly shift at all, like plus or minus 2 days from that. And they base that off of car deer collisions. Usually, if you measure their fetus, it almost gives you the exact back date based on one of the scales. I think John Hamilton, the founder of QDMA, came up with. So it's pretty accurate, pretty precise stuff. And then for me, it's kind of what I see every year. That last week in October, stuff starts to ramp up. They begin making a lot more scrapes. Kind of the bucks are getting ready to go. And then heading into that first week of November, they're starting to cover a lot more ground, get out of their home ranges for the most part, do little adventures. And then that right around that 6th of November, 6 through up to the peak breeding is when it's pretty hot and heavy, and bucks are chasing does hard.
And then it's interesting to say everybody has heard of the lockdown period. Now that's at the peak breeding period, isn't it?
Yeah. So
according to biology.
Yeah. Peak breeding is going to be your lockdown period if you do experience it. Peak breeding is not necessarily the best time to hunt. It's those phases leading up to it. So you kind of have the seek and the chase phase leading up to it, which I believe are the best. And I'll kind of break it down like this: that last week of October, I feel like that's your best chance at getting one of the bucks that you've been having constant trail cam pictures of on your property, leading up to that, just because they're not quite to that point where they're starting to go out of their home range, but they're covering a lot of ground within their home range, doing a lot of communication with other bucks. And then after that November range, that's kind of when you might start getting some of your stranger bucks show up, ones that you maybe had a picture or two of in the summer or last season, during the rut, stuff that's not always on your farm, but around that area. So,
and if you go by the biology, it doesn't waver, and there's enough scientific information, trends, and data that's been collected to support that. So just remember that, whether, again, it's a wild card in the cold front, and we're going to talk about that last. But just before we go on to the Farmer's Almanac, let's talk about how people get in touch with you at Legendary Whitetails.
Sure. Yeah. Any questions or stuff like that can be emailed at community@deergear.com. But otherwise, we're very active in the social media through Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat is deergear.com. So I kind of do snaps of our hunts live throughout the fall whenever I'm out and doing projects deer related. And then, then we got our normal site, which is deergear.com. And from there you can find the community page, which is where you'll find all the hunting related articles.
Thanks for that. So check him out, folks, because AJ does a heck of a job. He's been with Grant Woods in some internship with him. Started off with Bill Winkie there in Iowa, and Bill's, he does a great job every single year. So AJ's got some game, that's for darn sure. So let's go on to the Farmer's Almanac. What's that telling us?
That was kind of a fun one to throw in there. I said, what the heck? Everybody else is throwing out these crazy rut predictions. Why not get some skin in the game? And so, I think I saw an ad or something come across Facebook, and I was like, it'd be interesting to see what the Farmer's Almanac has to say, and kind of look back and see how they've done in years past. And more or less, it's not necessarily going to tell you when the rut is, but it's supposed to tell you kind of, what kind of season you can expect overall in terms of weather trends. And then it actually breaks it down on 3-day basis through the entire season, or through the entire year, actually. So a year in advance, you're getting like a 3-day breakdown of potential weather. So, probably not super accurate by any means if you're trying to, just look at the weathermen these days. They can hardly get something, a day in advance. So this is just kind of a fun one to throw out, but I kind of looked at their predictions for, cold fronts moving in, so that'll kind of tie into the next one. But, so let me see here for this year, the 2016 forecast for the Midwest reads, so October 28th through 31st, stormy over the Ohio Valley, Great Lakes, some wet snow could mix in. So that's sounds like a cold front to me. And, right around that Halloween time when bucks are starting to seek. And then November 1st through the 3rd, it's supposed to remain cold. So it looks like that 28th through the 3rd will be pretty good this year. We'll see. It wasn't last year, but and last year, I'll just make this note, they did not call for an extreme warm front to come through. So
no, they did not.
Put as much.
They did not.
Yeah.
Because I was there, and every morning I'll go to my what do I call that? I'll give a shout out right now. I use Storm, STOM. I use that app, and I like that better than anybody. For what it's worth, folks. And I check that religiously 24 hours before the next day. So in the morning, I check it, and then I go right before I go to bed. I come back on it to see, am I really going to get up at 4:30 or not? Because, and we're going to talk about this next. If you do anything, forget all the rut, the moon, and biology and a farmer's almanac. Forget all that. If a cold front's coming through, call in sick and do it on the front end and the back end. You don't want to sit in the tree if it's 30, 40 mile an hour winds and rain sideways or snow and hail and sleet. Take the day, go back to work. But on the front end of it, 8 hours, and you're going to have to help me with this, AJ. How many hours before the front hits should I be hunting, and how many hours after it?
Yeah, so that one in front of it is, if you can get out there, if it's supposed to land during the night, then that afternoon's probably going to be pretty good, especially depending on the significance of the drop and cold front that's pushing through. But then after it is when you really want to, if you can time it and be in that woods as soon as it blows through, it can be magical. If it's rain or whatever, if it's, drops from 65 down to 48 and the rain, if you can be sitting in your truck and watching that radar blow through and then walking out as soon as that rain stops, you're going to be in for probably a pretty good evening. So, but then if it remains cold, then your best action is going to be probably pretty much right after it blows through, just because they've been most likely bedded down during that storm and they're going to get up and feed, especially with it being colder. But if it remains cold, then you should have pretty good hunting conditions for however long those temperatures remain down there.
What's the temperature differential? You just mentioned, 65 to 40-ish. So let's throw in, 20 degree swing. Is a 10 degree differential advantageous, or it's if it goes from 70 to 60, I'm thinking, so what? So help me out here.
I always, if it's around that 15 degree mark, then you're in for a pretty good switch. 10 degrees, I'd still keep my eye on 10 degrees, especially around the time of the rut. In fact, like this Friday, I think it's supposed to go from 73 down to right around 60 with some rain pushing through. But those bucks aren't going to be moving too much with their winter coats and 73 degrees here. So I'm thinking that 10 degree drop and after some rain is going to be, this Friday is going to be a pretty good time to hunt early season anyway. But yeah, usually right around that 15 degree mark. And if you have steady cold temperatures during the rut, then you're golden. Anything below 55 degrees is pretty good, and the colder the better. If you can get around 30 to 40 of the entire rut, then you should be really rocking.
And just to let you know, this morning it was 34 degrees at my house here in Colorado. I'm 6,000 feet on the front. I live in Colorado Springs. So, it's heading your way, folks. It really is. No matter what has been said. It's coming.
I walked out in a short sleeve polo this morning in Wisconsin. It was plenty warm out right now.
Yeah, it is. And Bill Winke, if you go to Midwest Whitetails, he'll always say, hunt the cold front, call in sick, do whatever, because you combine the cold front with the rut, and it just switches it switches the lights on, changes gear, however you want to say it. And I like what you said, the tip. So sit in your truck, long distance glass, watch your your food plots, wherever you're hunting, if you can, with your glasses, even a spotting scope, from a distance. And then as soon as that rain changes, figure out what stand is right for the wind, and sneak in there. Don't go busting in there. Forget your ATV. Just walk in there. And I'm very serious about this because so many guys jump on an ATV and go wheeling up, and 100 yards from the stand, they'll go into the stand. Well, you just blew it, in my opinion. Right. AJ, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree. Just keep your eye on that radar. I know a lot of times we'll take camera equipment, so we can't be sitting out in the rain, but even if you could walk in, right before it blows down, if you don't mind getting a little drizzle on you, then you kind of have the cover of the rain and just the overall kind of noise of the woods at that time when it's raining, and they're usually still bedded. And it's like a light switch as soon as it stops raining. I mean, those deer are up. I remember specifically one hunt in Iowa back in 2012, and we were walking in right as the rain had let up, and there was, walking these logging roads back onto some public, and there was just deer on their feet. Like we spent the first 2 hours still hunting because there was just deer moving all over. I don't even know if we made it into the stand for the last half hour that night, but it was, and we had some close encounters with some really nice bucks. So it was like a light switch.
So, folks, it's unbelievable, AJ, but 30 minutes is going by. So I'm going to try to get this show up. Let's see, today's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. This show will be up by Monday. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to schedule it for every weekend until the rut's over. Thanks to AJ and Legendary Whitetails. So, AJ, take a couple minutes and give shout-outs to whomever, and Jared there and the crew at Legendary Whitetails, or whoever you want.
All right. Yeah, we got a pretty awesome group of people here. Jared runs all our social media for Legendary Whitetails. He's the one that you'll be interacting with most of the time on Facebook. I'll be answering questions and stuff like that on our articles. And then, pretty exciting stuff. We got a bunch of awesome apparel choices this year for the upcoming fall. A bunch of new flannels, some awesome shirts. And finally, something I'm really excited about is we're going to be releasing our first line of camo clothing products. So we have a pretty awesome fall lined up here at Legendary Whitetails. So come and get your gifts.
And folks, if you ever haven't checked them out, go to legendarywhitetails.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, Legendary Whitetails will work, deergear.com. Pretty much we're pretty easy to find. So yeah, come on out, get your deer camp essentials. We got just an awesome apparel selection line, every stuff for hunters in the everyday market. It's not just hunting clothing that you wear during the hunt. It's stuff you can wear all year round. So it's pretty neat.
Like we talked about the hunting tradition, and Legendary Whitetails, that's what they do. They help us live the hunting tradition 365 days a year. So I'm very thankful for AJ Gall running through his, 4 triggers of the rut with our thousands of listeners across North America. So on behalf of them, AJ, thank you so much for being on the show.
Hey, not a problem, Bruce. Thanks a lot for having me.
Tune in to the next exciting carry on to the rut with Audrey Faffey. Now, Audrey hails from western Wisconsin. She doesn't hunt Buffalo County, but she hunts the county right north of there. So she's got some nice bucks on her land there in Pepin County. She's also the owner of Marnock Whitetail Nutrition. And as she says, nutrition keeps a balanced herd and grows big bucks. So tune in. Audrey's going to have a 2-part show, so I think you're going to like it.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.